Hi, this is Hugo Venegas from the United Methodist Church in Pueblo, Colorado, and we're going to do our daily devotional, and we're studying the topic of how to have hope in times of suffering. And we're studying 1 Peter, basically chapters 3 from verse 8 all the way to the end of chapter 4, and I'm going to be able to dissect verses by verse and to help us to see this catalog of suggestions that the Apostle Peter has for the believers. Now, Peter is writing to believers who are all over the world that were persecuted from Jerusalem by the religious leaders, then they were being persecuted by the political leaders of the Roman Empire, so they scattered all over the known world and all over Asia, and that's why he's writing to them, because they're enduring a lot of suffering. So in verse 8, we see that he says to them, finally, all of you live in harmony with one another, be sympathetic, love as brothers, be compassionate and humble. Now he's saying, all of you, and he's addressing all the believers all over. He's not writing to a specific local church. And remember that the believers are being persecuted by their faith. They're being rushed out of their homes. They're going to different places. They're going to different lands. Now, we are being persecuted today by a virus. And the virus is all over the world, but the virus is persecuting us so that we all have to go inside. We're inside our homes. We can't go out. And if we go out, then we get exposed, and then we get sick, and then we pass the virus on to other people. That's bad news, passing bad news onto each other. What Peter is doing is to pass good news onto all the believers and giving them tips. The first tip that he's saying, I want all of you. So he's giving them a global strategy. He's not just writing to local churches, but he's writing to all churches of all times, that whenever you're persecuted, there is a global strategy for believers. Now, when this pandemic started, I don't know if you realize that the first doctor that was the whistleblower who wanted the world to know what was happening in Wuhan, China, was a believer. He was concerned for all believers all over. And he passed away, but I thank God for him, because he was trying to let the world know what was going on. That's what we need to do. We need to be concerned for believers all over, not only here in the United States, but our brothers and sisters in Brazil, in India, in the countries in Europe, Iceland. We have to be concerned about everyone. The second thing that he says is live in harmony with one another. I think this is so appropriate. We're locked in. A lot of reports have been given that there is a high level of domestic violence because spouses can't deal with each other. Parents are driving their kids crazy. Roommates are driving their roommates crazy. So we just have to figure out how to live in harmony. Whenever we experience persecution or we experience difficulties, it's very easy to get stressed. So let's try to be more harmonious in the way that we live with each other. He says, be sympathetic, love one another, be compassionate, and be humble. He's just saying, make sure that your relationships are activated by love. Be sympathetic. That means that be touched by whatever is going on in the lives of other people. There's a lot of bad news. 10,000 families, over 10,000 families in the United States have lost loved ones. We need to be praying for them. We need to support them with our love and our prayers from a distance. But there are also good things that are happening. People are getting married. People are having babies. People are experiencing some levels of success. So being sympathetic means to mourn with those who mourn and to rejoice with those who rejoice. The other thing that he says is be compassionate. Brothers, be compassionate with one another. And I have to tell you that I have seen a lot of compassion in these days. A couple nights ago, I was talking to my oldest daughter, and I said, what are you up to? And she said, I'm making masks for the people here in my unit. And I was saying to her, you don't know how to sew. You don't have a sewing machine. And she's like, well, Dad, I have about 50 men, young guys in our unit at Hill Air Force Base, that they don't have spouses and they don't have girlfriends. We have all been ordered to wear masks and we don't have any. So I am just trying to help these guys. And I was touched by how compassionate my daughter was. And I texted her back and I said, you know what? Our church can help. I can figure out something with the ladies of the church, and I'm sure that we can get you masks made and make sure that your men in your unit at the Hill Air Force Base can have the masks that they need to protect themselves while they're working on defending our country. And so I want to challenge you to be compassionate. There are a lot of opportunities out there for us to be compassionate and to reach out to each other. And be humble in your faith. God is our rock. God is our Savior, but it doesn't mean that because we have salvation and we have love in God that we need to be rude to those who are outside of the faith. So let us stand humbly, be compassionate, love one another, be sympathetic, and knowing that we're studying the strategy that God has given to His people as to how to endure through times of